She slammed the paper on my front door so hard that it rattled the glass. "You are in violation!" she shouted, her voice sharp enough to make the neighbors peek through their curtains. I stepped out on my porch and looked at her, holding that fake-looking HOA notice in her hand. "Violation of what?" I asked, my jaw tight. She crossed her arms, smirking like she owned the street. "You cannot park your truck here. It is against HOA regulations. You either move it now or face removal. The crazy part? I never signed up for any HOA. This land was mine before the neighborhood even existed." She leaned closer and whispered like she had already won. "I'll call the cops if you don't obey." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but inside, I was boiling. My truck wasn't just a vehicle. It was the one thing I had left from my late father. It carried memories, not just weight, and she wanted it gone. 2 minutes later, her phone was in her hand and she dialed so loudly the entire street could hear. "Yes, officer," she said, faking a trembling voice. "This man is trespassing on private HOA property. Send someone right away. He's aggressive and dangerous." I froze. She wasn't just bluffing. She was staging something bigger. My heart pounded because I knew once that call was made, everything could spiral. But what she didn't know, what nobody on this street knew, was that I wasn't the kind of man who could be cornered that easily. I stepped off the porch and walked toward her slowly. She backed up, clutching her phone tighter. "You're done," she hissed. But she didn't notice the small camera blinking red under my roof. Every word she had said was already recorded, and that was just the beginning. Her call worked faster than I expected. Within minutes, a black SUV rolled down the street and 2 men in uniform stepped out. But something was off. Their badges looked cheap and their cars had no police plates. The neighbors thought they were real officers whispering from their yards, pointing at me like I was already guilty. Karen stood proudly in front of them, her chin high, waving her fake paper. "There he is," she announced. "Arrest him for violating HOA law and trespassing." One of the men walked up and barked, "Turn around, hands behind your back." His voice was hard but shaky, like someone trying too hard to act official. I didn't move. Instead, I stared at Karen. "This is a mistake," I said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "This land has belonged to my family for 20 years. There is no HOA here." Karen's face twisted into a grin. "You can scream all you want. Nobody's going to believe you." For a moment, doubt crept into me. What if these men dragged me away and everyone just stood there believing her lies? My chest tightened, but I forced myself to breathe slowly. She thought she had won, but she didn't know who she was dealing with. The fake officer stepped closer, reaching for my arm. That's when I said it. Calm, sharp, and direct. "Before you touch me, you better call the sheriff. Because he knows exactly who I am." Karen blinked, her smirk faltering for the first time. The neighbors leaned in, whispering. The fake cop hesitated, his hand hovering. "And who are you supposed to be?" He sneered. I let the silence hang for a second, then tilted my head toward the security camera above my porch. The man who trained half this county's law enforcement. "The footage is already live streaming to the sheriff's office." Karen's mouth fell open. She hadn't expected that. The fake cops froze, exchanging nervous looks. The tension snapped like glass. I could see it in her eyes. She realized she had just stepped into something far bigger than she planned. But instead of backing down, she doubled down. "He's lying," she screamed, pointing at me. "He's dangerous. He has weapons inside. He'll hurt us all." Her voice echoed, pulling fear into the neighbors. People started stepping further back, unsure who to believe, and in that moment I knew she wasn't going to stop. The fake cops stiffened when Karen shouted, but I saw the cracks forming in their act. One of them wiped sweat from his forehead. The other kept shifting his feet like he wanted to run. Still, they kept the performance going. "We'll search the house," the taller one said, forcing authority into his voice. "Step aside." Karen's eyes lit up with triumph. "Yes, check inside. You'll see what he's hiding." My stomach tightened, not from fear of what they might find, but from the insult. My home wasn't just four walls. It was the last safe place for me and my son. Letting strangers walk through it under false pretenses, unthinkable. I stepped forward, lowering my voice so it carried more weight. "You step foot past that door and it's not me you'll answer to, it's the real sheriff." Karen laughed, high-pitched and mocking. "You keep saying sheriff like he's your friend. Stop pretending. These men are the law. You're just some washed up." The sound of tires screeching cut her off. A county patrol car pulled up at the curb, lights flashing red and blue. The timing was almost cinematic. The crowd of neighbors gasped. Karen's smirk dropped like a stone. The real deputy stepped out, his hand resting on his holster as he scanned the scene. "What's going on here?" he asked firmly. His eyes moved from me to the fake cops, then to Karen. Karen rushed forward, waving her arms. "Officer, thank God. This man is trespassing. He's violent. He threatened us all." The deputy raised his hand, shutting her up. "Funny," he said slowly, "because we just got a live feed of you impersonating HOA authority and filing a false report." His gaze snapped to the fake cops. "And you two, those badges don't belong to my department." The air shifted instantly. The fake officers went pale. The neighbors started whispering louder, some pulling out phones to record. Karen tried to laugh it off. "This is a mistake, I was only—" But the deputy wasn't smiling. He turned back to me, giving a small nod. "We'll take it from here." And in that single moment, the power shifted completely. Karen's reign of control slipped, but I could tell by the fire in her eyes. She wasn't finished yet. Karen's face twisted as the deputy questioned the fake officers. Her voice cracked as she tried to recover her ground. "You don't understand," she shouted. "He's dangerous. He threatened me. He's hiding weapons in that house." The deputy didn't flinch. "Ma'am, step back. We have your words recorded already. And unless you can prove otherwise, you're the one obstructing justice." The crowd murmured, people holding up their phones to capture every second. I could see the neighbors' faces shifting, doubt turning into realization. They were beginning to see who she really was. But Karen wasn't built to accept defeat. Her pride ran deeper than her sense. She stormed toward me, pointing her finger inches from my chest. "You don't belong here," she yelled, her voice shrill and desperate. "This neighborhood is for decent families, not people like you." The deputy moved between us instantly. "Ma'am, that's enough." Her face burned red, but her words didn't stop. "I'll sue him. I'll take his house. You'll all see. He's not who he says he is." I locked eyes with her, steady and calm. My silence made her louder, made her crack. She wanted me to explode, to lose control, but I wouldn't give her that. Then came the twist no one expected. From the corner of the street, a smaller figure ran forward. My son. His voice broke the tension like glass shattering. "Leave my dad alone," he shouted, his fists clenched. He was shaking, but he stood in front of me like a soldier. The neighbors gasped. Karen's smirk vanished. For the first time, she looked rattled. Kids have a way of cutting through lies without even trying. My son's courage painted the whole scene differently. The deputy crouched slightly, looking at him kindly. "Don't worry, son. We're here to make sure no one hurts your dad." But I knew this fight wasn't over. Karen wasn't backing down, she was recalculating. And the look in her eyes told me the next move she planned would be darker, riskier, and far more dangerous than fake cops or fake papers. She wasn't done yet. She was just getting started. That night should have ended with Karen humiliated and gone. But people like her don't sleep on defeat. The patrol car pulled away. The fake cops disappeared into the back seat and neighbors drifted back into their homes. Yet even as the street fell quiet, I knew she was plotting. Her kind never accepts the truth. They twist it, reshape it, and strike back harder. I tucked my son into bed, reassuring him everything was fine. But his small voice cut me deeper than Karen's shouting ever could. "Dad, what if she comes back?" He looked at me with wide eyes, waiting for a promise I couldn't fully make. I told him the only truth I could. She won't touch this house. Not while I'm here. Hours later, long after midnight, my doorbell rang. My stomach clenched. I checked the monitor, and there she was. Karen. Standing in the dark with a flashlight, her face half lit, her eyes wild. In her hand was a thick envelope. She held it up to the camera. "This isn't over," she hissed, knowing I could hear through the intercom. "I filed a report. You'll be evicted by the end of the week." She dropped the envelope on my porch and walked away into the shadows. I opened it carefully. Inside was a forged eviction notice with county letterhead so realistic, most people would have panicked. But the problem for her was, I had worked in that very county office years ago. I knew every stamp, every seal, every line of real paperwork. This was a sloppy fake. I almost laughed, almost. Because while the notice was worthless, the fact that she had gone this far told me something chilling. She wasn't just trying to harass me anymore. She wanted to erase me completely. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the papers while the night pressed in. My son slept upstairs, trusting me to protect him. My father's truck sat outside, the same one she had tried to tow away. And I realized this was no longer about a parking dispute, no longer about an HOA. This was about control, about a woman who thought she could bend laws and lives with the force of her will. But what she didn't know was simple. She wasn't the only one holding cards, and if she kept pushing, I'd have no choice but to play mine. The next morning, the neighborhood buzzed with whispers. People had seen the sheriff car last night and the fake cops hauled away. Some were curious, some pretended not to know, but everyone felt the shift. Karen, though, she walked around as if nothing had happened. She wore a bright smile, carried her coffee cup, and waved at neighbors like she hadn't tried to destroy a man's life 12 hours earlier. But her eyes gave her away. They darted toward my house every few seconds, burning with a mix of hatred and calculation. She wasn't hiding it anymore. She wanted me gone, and she wanted everyone to watch her do it. By noon, a tow truck rumbled down the street. My heart dropped when I saw it slow in front of my driveway. Karen came strutting behind it, clipboard in hand, yelling loud enough for the whole block. "This vehicle is an eyesore and a safety hazard. I have authorization to remove it immediately." Neighbors stepped out of their homes again, phones ready. She loved the stage, loved the audience. The tow driver looked uneasy, though. He scratched his beard and asked, Ma'am, do you have the official order for this?" Karen shoved the fake papers at him, her voice dripping with arrogance. "Of course I do. Now hook it up." I walked out calm but firm. "Touch that truck and you'll be charged with theft," I said. "That order is a forgery. I suggest you call the county office before you make the biggest mistake of your career." The driver hesitated, holding the papers up to the sunlight. His eyes narrowed. "This doesn't even have the right seal," Karen snapped, grabbing the papers back. "Don't listen to him. He's a liar, a fraud. He's been trespassing since day one." The driver looked between us, then slowly lowered the tow hook. "Not my fight, lady. I'm not touching this without real paperwork." He climbed into his truck and drove off, leaving Karen alone in the middle of the street. The neighbors laughed, quiet at first, then louder. Phones kept recording. Her face went red, then pale, then red again. She screamed at them, "This isn't funny. You'll all regret siding with him." But the truth was out now. The crowd had seen the cracks in her mask, and I knew it was only a matter of time before she snapped completely. What I didn't know was that her next move would involve more than fake papers or fake cops. She was about to cross a line even she couldn't walk back from. That night the air felt heavier than usual, like the street itself was waiting for something to happen. I double-checked the locks and set the security system before heading upstairs. My son was asleep, clutching the stuffed bear his mom had given him years ago. I kissed his forehead and whispered that everything was going to be fine, though deep down I wasn't sure anymore. Around midnight, the alarm tripped. A sharp beep echoed through the house. I rushed to the monitor and froze. Karen was in my backyard. She wasn't alone this time. She had two men with her, both wearing black hoodies, carrying bolt cutters and crowbars. My blood went cold. This wasn't about HOA notices or trucks anymore. She was breaking into my home. I grabbed my phone and dialed the sheriff directly. "They're here," I said quietly. "Send units now." He didn't even ask who. I could hear urgency in his voice as he replied, "Stay inside. We're on our way." On the screen, Karen pointed toward the back door, whispering instructions like she was in charge of some kind of mission. One man snapped the lock with the cutters. My fists clenched. My son was upstairs, sleeping peacefully, and she was trying to invade the only safe place he had. The moment they pushed the door open, I stepped into the hallway with the shotgun my father had left me. My voice cut through the dark. "You take one more step and you'll regret it for the rest of your life." The men froze, their faces pale in the glow of the motion light. Karen, though, was shaking with rage. "You won't scare us. This is HOA authority. You're finished." My finger rested on the trigger, steady but calm. "Karen, this isn't HOA, this is breaking and entering, and you just brought witnesses." I tilted my head toward the red light on the camera above the doorway. Her eyes widened as she realized everything was being recorded. Her voice, her threats, the tools in their hands. Before she could spit out another lie, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder every second. The men bolted into the dark, but Karen didn't move. She just stood there trembling, torn between running and keeping her pride. The red and blue lights filled the yard as real deputies swarmed in. For the first time, Karen looked small, And yet, as they placed her in handcuffs, I could see it in her eyes. Even behind the flashing lights, even with the whole street watching, she was still plotting something. This war wasn't just about to end. It was about to explode. The street was alive with flashing lights and murmurs as deputies led Karen toward the patrol car. Neighbors stood in clusters with their phones out, filming every second. For once, she didn't bark orders or pretend she was in charge. She just kept shouting the same line over and over, her voice cracking. "You don't know who I am. You'll regret this. I'll sue all of you." The deputy beside her stayed calm, tightening the cuffs. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for trespassing, impersonating authority, filing false reports, and attempted break-in." Each charge he listed made the crowd gasp louder. The words were heavy, final, undeniable. I stood on the porch holding my son close. He peeked over my arm, wide-eyed, watching the woman who had terrorized us dragged away in front of everyone. For the first time in weeks, he whispered, "Dad, is it over?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, buddy. It's over." But the deputy gave me a look, one that carried both respect and warning. "You did the right thing keeping calm. Men like me appreciate that. But you should know, people like her don't always stop after one arrest. Make sure your cameras stay on." I understood his meaning. This battle was won. But the war of entitlement and power abuse was much bigger than one Karen. As the patrol car pulled away, a silence settled over the block. Then one by one, neighbors turned to me. Some clapped. Some apologized for believing her lies. One elderly man even said softly, "You defended more than your house tonight. You defended all of us." I didn't answer right away. My eyes were on the old truck in the driveway. My father's truck, still sitting there like a symbol. It reminded me of something my dad once told me. Land, home, and family are worth standing for no matter the cost. I tightened my arm around my son. "I didn't fight for this country to let someone tell me I can't park in my own driveway," I said loudly, letting the words hang in the night air. The neighbors cheered, and for the first time I felt the weight lift off my chest. Justice wasn't just served, it was witnessed. And that mattered most of all. Because in America, when someone tries to take your home, your freedom, or your family's safety, you don't bow, you stand.